There are stories the world has tried to forget, whispers buried under centuries of silence, warnings etched into stone, hidden behind myth, folklore, and fear. But they persist, echoing through time like a curse refusing to die. In this video, we dive into 6 unsettling tales of ancient curses. From forbidden relics to haunted bloodlines, these stories have one thing in common. Those who get too close rarely return the same. Are you ready to uncover what should have remained buried? In 1924, British archaeologist Edward Langston led an excavation in the ruins of ancient Jerusalem. Among the cracked stones and sand-choked tunnels, Langston uncovered what he believed to be the lost tomb of King Solomon. The dig was met with resistance from local villagers, who claimed the land was cursed. They spoke in hushed tones about a sleeping shadow that should not be disturbed. Inside the chamber, hidden beneath a slab inscribed with warnings in a language older than Hebrew, Langston discovered a small, blackened ring. It was simple in design yet unnaturally heavy, so much so that lifting it felt like lifting a stone twice its size. The inscription inside read only one word, Sha'al, a forgotten name for the underworld. Langston, ignoring the pleas of his guides who refused to step near the tomb, took the ring back to London. From the moment he wore it, things began to change. He began dreaming of endless corridors lined with mirrors that didn't reflect him. In some dreams, something watched him from behind the glass, something wearing his face but smiling in all the wrong ways. He'd wake up covered in sand, though his bed was spotless. His journal entries became increasingly erratic, filled with symbols no one could translate. Colleagues noticed his personality shift. He became withdrawn, paranoid. He claimed the ring whispered to him in the voice of someone he once loved, but long dead. He spoke of gates opening beneath the floor, and of footsteps that never stopped. Soon after, people close to him began to vanish. A fellow archaeologist, a museum curator, even his own brother. All disappeared without a trace. Each time, the last known location was Langston's home. Terrified, Langston sealed the ring in a lead box etched with protective symbols and buried it beneath his study floorboards. He covered the area with a rug and avoided the room entirely. But it was too late. Days later, he was found dead in his study. The cause? Unknown. There were no signs of struggle. His eyes were wide open, mouth agape, frozen mid-scream. The lead box was recovered, but it was empty. Over the decades, stories of a cursed ring would resurface. In 1956, a British soldier stationed in Cyprus reportedly found a strange ring while digging trenches. Within weeks, he was plagued by vivid dreams of burning cities, screaming statues, and sand that bled. He went mad and tried to set his barracks on fire, claiming, "The gate must not open." In 1989, a collector in Istanbul bought an unmarked ring at a bazaar from a vendor who vanished the next day. He was later found in his apartment, the walls covered in mirror fragments. He had no memory of how they got there. He only muttered again and again, "I see myself, and it sees me back." More recently, in 2011, an anonymous post on an occult forum described a ring matching the exact design. Black, heavy, engraved with the name Sha'al. The user claimed it appeared on their desk after a nightmare involving an underground palace filled with whispering shadows. The thread was deleted within hours. The user was never heard from again. The ring's current location is unknown, but some say it never stays buried for long. And if you ever find an old, blackened ring that feels too heavy for its size, you might want to leave it exactly where it is. In 1872, deep within the dense jungles of Peru, an expedition led by Italian explorer Vittorio Sforza stumbled upon the ruins of a forgotten civilization. Hidden beneath layers of vines and soil was the Temple of Merata, a circular stone structure with no visible entrance, save for a narrow crack barely wide enough to crawl through. The locals warned the explorers not to enter. They spoke of a goddess named Merata, a being of vanity and reflection, cursed by the gods for imprisoning the souls of others in mirrors to preserve her own beauty. They said anyone who dared to look into her sacred mirror would see not themselves, but the worst version of who they could become. Ignoring the warnings, Sforza and his team forced their way inside. The air within the temple was still and heavy, thick with the scent of dust and decay. Strange murals adorned the walls, figures with elongated limbs and blank faces, all gazing into polished obsidian surfaces. At the heart of the temple stood a pedestal, and upon it, the Mirror of Merata, a perfectly round disk of black stone, shimmering faintly despite the absence of light. When one of the assistants, a young cartographer named Elias, gazed into the mirror, he screamed and dropped to the floor, convulsing. He claimed he saw himself standing over the bodies of his comrades, drenched in blood, smiling as the temple burned behind him. Shaken but intrigued, Sforza documented the experience and ordered the mirror be taken back to Europe. That was the beginning of the end. On the journey back, the ship encountered unexplainable misfortunes. A sailor was found hanging in his quarters, eyes gouged out. Another attacked his crewmates with a broken bottle, shouting, "He looked like me, but he wasn't me." By the time they reached the port in Genoa, 5 men were dead, and 2 had gone missing at sea. In Italy, Sforza placed the mirror in his private collection. He became obsessed with it, spending hours locked in the chamber where it was kept. Servants reported strange whispers echoing through the halls and the sound of weeping behind closed doors. Eventually, Sforza stopped eating and speaking. He covered every mirror in his villa, save for the Mirror of Merata. One night, he vanished without a trace. The only clue left behind was a single handprint on the surface of the mirror, not from the outside, but from within. Over the years, the mirror changed hands, often sold in secret auctions or acquired by collectors of the occult. Each new owner reported similar phenomena: doppelgangers appearing in reflections, whispers speaking in the owner's voice, and hallucinations of unspeakable acts committed by their own hands. In 2006, a woman in Berlin bought an antique mirror at a flea market. Days later, her neighbors complained of loud arguments echoing from her apartment, but she lived alone. When the police forced entry, they found her standing in front of the mirror, smiling. On the floor lay a journal with the final entry: "I forgave her. She deserves to live now. I'll take her place." The mirror was confiscated and placed in storage, but the clerk who filed the report disappeared weeks later. To this day, some believe the Mirror of Merata still surfaces from time to time, disguised among antiques, waiting for someone curious enough to look too deeply. And if you ever find yourself staring into a mirror that doesn't quite reflect you, look away. It might not let you leave. In the heart of Montmartre, Paris, there once stood a modest gallery known as La Lumière Obscure. It specialized in forgotten artists, strange works, and one particular painting that the locals whispered about but never dared to touch. It was a portrait titled Madame Virot, Au crépuscule, Madame Virot at dusk, painted in 1887 by the reclusive artist Henri Delacroix. The piece portrayed a pale woman in mourning dress, seated by a window during twilight. Her expression was unreadable, her eyes hauntingly lifelike. Delacroix reportedly claimed he had never met the woman in real life, but painted her after seeing her in a dream that repeated every night for 13 days. The gallery's curator, Elise Dumont, inherited the painting from her grandfather, who had once owned the gallery before shutting it down in the 1940s. According to Elise, The painting had been kept hidden in a bricked-up cellar, sealed along with a note in her grandfather's handwriting. "Never sell this. Never show it. Burn it if you must." But Elise was a rational woman, skeptical of superstition. She restored the painting, cleaned its canvas, and displayed it prominently in the gallery's front room in 2012. That was when the incidents began. Visitors claimed to feel watched when near the painting. Some heard faint sobbing coming from behind the canvas. One child went missing inside the gallery, only to be found an hour later, curled up beneath the painting's frame, muttering in an old dialect of French no one could identify. Security footage from one night revealed something impossible. Between 2:17 and 2:19 a.m., the painting appeared to change. Madame Viraud shifted slightly in her seat. Her head turned. Her eyes looked straight into the camera. Elise tried to brush it off as a hoax or a digital glitch. But more things started happening. Staff members quit without explanation. Mirrors cracked without impact. Patrons who stared too long at the painting complained of headaches, hallucinations, and strange dreams involving a house filled with whispers and locked doors. Determined to learn the truth, Elise dug into Delacroix's journals, which were kept in a museum archive. What she found chilled her. The artist had gone blind just weeks after finishing the painting. In his final entry, he wrote, "She is no longer in the frame. She is in the walls. I can hear her breathing." One night, Elise stayed late at the gallery. She set up a camera and stared at the painting for hours, demanding answers. Around 3 a.m., something in the video footage flickered. The camera caught Madame Viraud standing. Not in the painting, in the room. Her dress fluttered like smoke, her eyes hollow voids. Elise never made it out. The next morning, the police found the gallery untouched. But Elise was gone. Her office door was locked from the inside. Her last journal entry, scribbled hastily in the margins of her grandfather's note, read, asterisk, "I tried to burn it. It wouldn't burn. It screamed." The painting remains missing. Some say it resurfaces now and then at estate sales or private auctions under a different title. And those who bring it home, they stop showing up to work. They stop answering their phones. They stop being seen altogether. In 1893, a British expedition led by Sir Thomas Reading ventured deep into the jungles of Assam, India, searching for ancient relics of the forgotten Kamarupa kingdom. The journey was long and treacherous, with heat, disease, and paranoia eating away at the crew. But their goal was clear: locate the rumored temple of Bhairava, the fierce manifestation of Shiva, and recover its hidden treasure. What they found was not a temple, but a stone cavern overgrown with strangler figs and carved with impossible symbols. Inside, untouched by time, stood an ivory idol no larger than a child. It depicted a many-eyed figure seated in a lotus position, its mouth open in an eternal scream, and its eyes inlaid with black stones that seemed to drink in the light. Sir Thomas, ignoring the warnings of his local guides who refused to enter, claimed the idol in the name of the British Museum. The guides begged him to leave it. They called it Preta Drishti, the gaze of the dead. From the moment the idol was boxed and shipped, tragedy followed. First, the photographer who documented the dig burned every glass plate of the idol's image, claiming it showed up distorted, like it was staring back. He later jumped into a river and was never seen again. Then, 3 members of the expedition succumbed to a mysterious illness marked by high fever and frenzied dreams. They all muttered the same phrase before death, asterisk, "He watches from inside." Upon arriving in London, the idol was housed in the museum's vault. But it didn't stay there. Within weeks, a curator named Joseph Markham brought the idol home to study. His notes, recovered later, detailed unsettling events, reflections that didn't match reality, rooms colder than ice, and whispers that grew louder in silence. One night he wrote, "I think it's breathing. I hear it when I sleep. I feel it when I turn my back." Markham vanished shortly after. His flat was found empty, save for a circle of ash on the floor and the idol at its center, now with one more eye carved into its forehead. The museum sealed the object in a lead-lined case and placed it in deep storage. But the story didn't end there. In 1962, a group of university students researching colonial acquisitions found references to the idol. They bribed a night guard, broke into the archive, and removed the case. One student, Elaine Carter, reportedly stared into the idol's eyes for nearly 20 minutes. She survived. The others didn't. 2 died in a car crash the next night, though witnesses claimed they swerved to avoid something that wasn't there. A third disappeared completely. Elaine was found days later, sitting in the rain in her backyard, whispering, "It moved. It moved when I blinked." The idol was returned to storage, this time sealed behind salt lines, iron mesh, and warding runes. No official records confirm its current location, but an anonymous online auction in 2019 featured an image that bore its likeness, down to the number of eyes, now 11. The listing vanished within hours, and the seller? Never identified. In the remote village of Vastrakar, nestled deep in the Swedish countryside, there exists a local legend older than the town itself, the legend of the singing bones. In 1721, a shepherd named Jorgen Lofgren uncovered a human skeleton while digging a new well behind his cottage. The bones were arranged deliberately, almost reverently, and near the skull lay a carved wooden flute. Though warped by time, the flute still bore runes etched into its surface, a language no one in the village recognized. Curious, and perhaps a bit foolish, Jorgen cleaned the flute and tried to play it. That night, his neighbor reported hearing an eerie melody echoing across the hills. It didn't sound like anything played by human hands, more like a voice trying to become music. By morning, Jorgen was gone. His home was undisturbed, save for muddy footprints that began at his bed and led outside into the frost. No one ever found him. Over the years, others tried to play the flute. Every attempt ended in a disappearance or death. The melody always returned, soft, mournful, and hollow, as if calling for something or someone. In 1895, a traveling folklorist named Astrid Holm visited the village to document the tale. She convinced the town's aging priest, who had kept the flute hidden in the church crypt, to let her examine it. She noted its uncanny craftsmanship. The wood was not native to Sweden, nor was it identifiable. The runes glowed faintly in darkness. She dared to play a single note. 3 days later, she was found in the woods, barefoot and singing a lullaby no one recognized, her eyes completely black. She lived, but never spoke again. Her journals, however, told more. According to Astrid's notes, the flute was not made from wood, but from human bone, specifically a child's femur. The runes, once deciphered by a linguistic expert in Uppsala, were a mixture of Old Norse and something older, something wrong. One phrase repeated over and over, "Let the silence bleed. Let the dead sing." In 1943, during World War II, a group of Nazi occultists reportedly tried to retrieve the artifact, believing it was a key to speaking with the dead. They succeeded in stealing it, but were found days later. Their vehicle crashed and burned near the village outskirts. No signs of fire were ever found inside the wreckage. The flute was recovered, unharmed, resting on the lap of the driver's skeleton, whose hands were fused to the steering wheel. The villagers, terrified, buried the artifact in a silver-lined box beneath the altar of the oldest church in the region. But even buried, the music didn't stop. Occasionally, during the long winters, those living closest to the church report hearing faint flute music under the snow. Children cry out in their sleep, claiming the singer with no lips is calling them to come play. No one dares dig it up again. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, you can hear the melody drifting from the hills, the same haunting tune that played the night Jörgen Lofgren vanished. And if you hum along, you might not be able to stop. In the hills of southern Poland, hidden among dense forests and mist-covered valleys, lies the village of Zarnolas, a place few outsiders know and fewer still dare visit. The locals speak in hushed tones of the Black Madonna, not the revered icon of Częstochowa, but another, older figure, one that no church claims and no priest dares bless. The Black Madonna of Zarnolas is a statue carved from jet-black stone, her features worn smooth by time, yet unmistakably sorrowful. Her eyes seem to weep, though no one has ever seen tears fall. Instead, the stone beneath her feet is always damp, as if weeping for her. Legend claims she was carved in the 1400s by a grieving sculptor whose wife and child died during a plague. He poured his anguish into the stone, but as he worked, something else began to take shape, something not entirely his. The final result was wrong, too lifelike, too heavy with despair. He placed it in a shrine outside the village and hanged himself beneath its gaze. From that moment, the village changed. Children began having night terrors, dreaming of a woman in black robes, standing at the foot of their beds, whispering names they didn't know. Crops withered even in spring. Cows birthed stillborn calves. The river that once ran clear turned dark and sluggish. A traveling friar attempted to exorcise the statue. He died of fever within days, his tongue blackened. The villagers tried to destroy it once. In 1681, lightning struck the chapel where the statue had been moved. Flames consumed the building, but the Madonna remained untouched, standing amid the ashes. Her eyes, they say, gleamed. By the 1800s, Zarnolas was nearly abandoned. Only a few families remained, those too poor or too proud to leave. A scholar named Amelia Brozick, curious about the legend, arrived in 1897 to document the shrine. In her journal, she described the statue as aching with loss, but something beneath that loss is hungry. Amelia vanished during a snowstorm. Months later, a hunter found her frozen solid, her face turned toward the Madonna. Her notebook was in her lap. The final entry read, "She wants to be worshipped again." The local bishop ordered the statue to be sealed in a lead sarcophagus and buried deep beneath the old chapel's foundation. Salt was spread. Prayers were said. The site was forgotten until 2014. That year, a team of paranormal investigators posted a video exploring the ruins of Zarnolas Chapel. They unearthed the chamber. In the flickering light of their cameras, the Black Madonna stood uncovered, still weeping, still untouched by time. The video abruptly ends with screams and a falling camera. None of the crew were ever found. Today, the video occasionally resurfaces online, only to be removed mysteriously within hours. Those who've seen it claim that the statue's eyes move when the screen flickers. Some say they hear sobbing long after the video ends. And those who dig deeper into the mystery, they start dreaming of her too. Some say curses are nothing more than superstition, tricks of the mind. But how do you explain the disappearances, the madness, the centuries of fear tied to these objects and places? Maybe it's not just coincidence. Maybe some things were never meant to be found. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you're one of the brave ones. Don't forget, new strange stories drop every day here on Real Weird Things. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you tomorrow. unless the curse finds you first.